pessoal, bem-vindos a mais um BANGCAST, feito em parceria com a Comic Con, em direto, hoje com a Xiran, autora deste Viúva de Ferro, que acabou de chegar às livrarias. Eu sou o Luís Porterral, editor da Saidadeemergencia. Como sempre, tenho o Luís Filipe Silva, o Bruno Martins Soares e Xiran. Thank you so much for being with us. This is going to be a podcast for our publisher, but we do it here at Comic Con. So later on, this will be on the internet for forever, I hope. And
oh boy!
welcome to Portugal. Welcome to Lisbon. Great to have you here. We have some questions for you. And the audience, they are going to make some questions because I'm going to point to them and say, I want a question from you. So you'll have questions today. Luís, Bruno.
What made you start writing? What was the process by which you felt, okay, I like reading, now I want to be an author, I want to do some kinds of stories, and what made you have the guts, so to speak, of sending your work out there just to be reviewed by editors?
Oh boy, so I've always had just like stories in my head. I've like overactive imagination and all that, but I didn't actually start like getting into reading and writing until I was 15. I was at an anime convention just like this, and then I met this guy. He was like 23 or something. This story doesn't have a creepy ending, I swear. And then he was like, oh yeah, I'm a writer. And I was like, oh, I'm a writer too, even though I hadn't like actually written down any of the stories in my head. But then he told me to send him some of my writing because he was curious. And so I was like, when I got home, I was like, oh God, now I got to actually like write something down. So I did, and then I sent the first chapter to him, and he gave me some feedback, and I realized I really enjoy getting feedback on this like writing thing. So I ended up like finishing the entire novel, and it was really terrible. But being the like teenager that I was like, oh, this is the greatest like literary masterpiece ever. And I researched how to get published. And so I started sending it out to agents, and then I was like daydreaming of it being like picked up right away, getting a publishing deal right away. It didn't happen, and I'm really glad it didn't because it was terrible. The book was so bad, my God. But yeah, that's the kind of like gutso that I no longer have because I'm no longer a teenager. But that experience did teach me how to just like finish a book. So now I never write in halves. I always have to like, I stick to one book, I finish it. And I think that's a pretty important quality for like aspiring writers to actually like finish the projects you start, instead of just like starting projects over and over, but not finishing them. So yeah. And what I learned from that is if something doesn't work out, then write something new. And don't be fixated on like trying to revise the same thing over and over. It usually doesn't work out. With your new set of skills, if you write a new book, it's going to be better.
And you're talking about works of longer length. You didn't take a chance on writing short stories. Like in the old days, they used to do writing short stories to get known, and then going through a book deal.
Yeah, nowadays I don't think that works anymore because I don't read short fiction, so I can't write short fiction because you can't really write what you don't read. And yeah, I feel like nowadays you have to just write something novel length because people don't really read short stories anymore. I don't think, at least like, I don't know anyone who does.
In your book you say that Pitch Wars 2018
was
very important to you.
It was.
Can you tell us about that?
Okay, so that was a completely different book. That was the book before this. It was a book about 3,000 years in the future, and humans have either genetically engineered themselves or like mechanically engineered themselves into mermaids. So there are like bioengineered mermaids versus cyborg mermaids. And this was a story set in the South China Sea. It was like Asian sci-fi mermaids. I thought it was pretty cool, and like a lot of people thought it was pretty cool too. And so it got into Pitch Wars, which was really important to me because it was through Pitch Wars that I actually learned how to plot. Because that story originally it was written in a very like meandering way. I didn't really know what I was doing around the middle of that story. And then Pitch Wars taught me how to like just have a stronger plot.
I gotta tell you, I really don't know how it works. How do pitch wars work?
Pitch Wars? Okay, so it used to be, I think it's over now, but it used to be a yearly mentorship contest where aspiring writers sent their manuscripts to this group of it's about 100 Pitch Wars mentors. They apply beforehand, and usually these mentors, they either have a book deal or are already published, or in some other way they're experienced in the industry, and they take on they take on one mentee each. So actually I got chosen out of 3,000 entries, and there was a 0.3 chance of getting in or something. So it was actually it was a really prestigious mentorship contest, and so I was really happy to get in, even though I got my agent through that, but that book didn't end up selling, though it might come out in a different format. Watch out for announcements.
You are not only a writer, you are also a social media phenomenon.
Yeah.
I'll say, would you say that this is important or even necessary to become an established writer, especially for young people?
I don't think it should be necessary. I think that the skills that are necessary to succeed on social media is a completely different skill set than writing, and writers shouldn't be expected to become influencers in order to get published, because that's just ridiculous. It's so do you want them to write or do you want them to be influencers? It's a different skill set, and I think writers have the right to be just gremlins who never come out, and it should be the books that are sold instead of the entire person as a brand. Yeah.
You think it's needed?
I don't think it should, but unfortunately, publishing has this expectation now for authors to become influencers, and I know for a fact that my name gets brought up a lot at these publishing meetings, and I hate that, because keep my name out of your mouth, because you guys were the ones who rejected me when I was a nobody, and now that I blew up, it's ridiculous, and I hate it.
Because I heard stories about people who were rejected by agents because they didn't have 10,000 followers in Instagram or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm asking, well, if you do have 10,000 followers on Instagram, why do you need an agent anyway?
Oh yeah, exactly. So if we're expected to do all our own marketing, then why pursue traditional publishing, right? So it's just, I really do not agree with this concept as authors must become influencers. And I really hate that, it may have worked out for me, but that's because I had the skill set to be popular on social media, apparently, even though I had less than 500 followers when Iron Whittle sold. So I was a nobody back then. And the skill sets that I use for my videos and stuff, I learned them through fandom and just cosplay. Because cosplay is the reason why I know how to do makeup, why I have a bunch of really cool outfits. So it's a completely different thing from my writing, and I do consider it different.
But how did you get picked up? How did you get a book deal?
A book deal. So I had my agent, and then I was actually supposed to revise my third book, the Mermaid book, for a publisher who was interested in it, but thought that it needed more work. And I was supposed to be doing that, but the concept of Iron Widow was just so vivid in my head, and it had such a hold on me that I had to write the entire book first. And so I did that, and my agent was very surprised by it. I don't think she was very happy with me, but now she doesn't care. No, it worked out, so that was great. And so I sent her the draft, and then she was like, okay, wow. I thought you were supposed to be revising the other book, but okay, this book is, it has potential, but but this is way too dark and explicit for YA. You need to tone it down, because this is 18 plus right now. So I had to tone down Iron Widow from the first draft, and now I think it's rated 14 plus.
So do you consider it IA?
Yeah, it's YA, because she actually discussed with me about sending it as an adult science fiction instead, because of how dark it was. And I was like, no, I wrote a lot of these tropes in response. I'm engaging with a lot of YA tropes here. And so I was really insistent on it being YA instead. And then it got sent out to publishers, I think, January 2020. And I had interest in 9 days, which was really, really fast. But still, it got rejected by every publisher in America because they didn't think it was marketable, even though a lot of editors did want it. So they were like, oh, why sci-fi doesn't sell? So like, I'm sorry, we can't take this. It's too sci-fi. And so it sold to Penguin Random House Canada instead because they were more willing to like take on sci-fi projects. And so this is actually a really, really rare case of an entirely Canadian-produced book just like blowing up in America. Usually it's not that way. Yeah.
And you rather write it as a new adult, for example, with some more adult elements? Or?
Unfortunately, new adult doesn't exist anymore. Like, it was a thing, and then it's no longer a thing, so people don't, like, recognize it, even though it was helpful as a genre. But nowadays, publishing just doesn't recognize it anymore.
So it's young adult or adult?
It's young adult crossover.
Yeah, because I read somewhere that half the readers of young adult are adults.
Are adults, yeah. Yeah, so I do think that new adult would be a really helpful genre if it had stayed a thing, but it's not a thing anymore.
Okay, that's news for me.
You guys, I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about what Iron Reader is for the occasional reader that hasn't yet get the chance to know the book. And also, we know that you base your main the character in a very famous historical Chinese empress.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the research that you did and why did you choose to do that?
Okay, so Iron Widow is a sci-fi reimagining of Wu Zetian, the only female emperor in Chinese history. And so basically I envision her being reborn in this like extremely patriarchal nightmare world where like boys and girls have to pair up to pilot mechas. But except the girl pilots are like disproportionately sacrificed during the battle because it's like a very like psychic mental link thing in between the pilots. And so the girl pilots are just seen as disposable concubines while the male pilots are celebrated as celebrities. And but the protagonist, Zetian, so I imagine her as just like the historical female emperor reborn in this like nightmare world, and then she wants to do something about that because her sister died as one of these like disposable concubines, and she's really mad about that. So she's like, you know what, I'm just gonna go and assassinate the male pilot who's responsible, even though he's like a huge celebrity, because I don't care, I just want my revenge. And except, like, it doesn't quite go the way that she thought it was, and now she gets tangled up in a bunch of drama. But, like, she always wants to just, like, keep grabbing at power in order to just overturn the system. So that is the book.
Well,
I'm sorry. How about the real empress? What happened with the real empress?
So I actually have a two-parter video on my YouTube channel that like goes into the actual story of the empress because it's very long. But she was concubine of one emperor and then concubine of another emperor, but she became like empress to him. And then he was so sick that she started taking on a bunch of governing responsibilities. And then after he died, she like slowly disposed of all her sons. And until she like proclaimed a dynasty for herself. So she is like the only legitimate female emperor in Chinese history because she was recognized as like the sole sovereign of China, and she had her own dynasty. Like it was a separate thing from the Tang dynasty. And so that was her. And if you want to know the full story, I have like a really detailed description, two-parter video on my YouTube channel.
Here is promoting your videos. Very well.
Exactly. No, it's because I have actual disclaimer at the front of my book. Like, this is a fictionalized story. It's an entirely different world from ours. Do not read this as nonfiction. If you want nonfiction, go to my YouTube channel.
Well, I've been reading a lot of young adult, and I have to congratulate you because your book is very well written. Okay, I have other books in the publisher that sell more.
Yeah.
But when you read the phrases, the character developments, the dialogues, it's so different. So I want to tell you, congratulations. You write very, very well.
Well, okay? Thank you.
I could not say that to other writers I have, so I'm not going to say their names. But it's a new league, I think, comparing to many other bestsellers on the genre. So congratulations. Can I ask, to the audience if we have some questions?
Yeah.
Or I can pick people? Ok. Em português ou em inglês, tanto faz.
Okay.
No primeiro capítulo, temos Zetian a falar sobre género. Pergunto se isto é algo que se vai repetir no próximo livro, Heavenly Tyrant.
Yes, a lot of it. Heavenly Tyrant is going to go deeper into a lot of issues, such as like gender and just like the war and of feminism. Just because, okay, honestly, Iron Widow, the feminism in Iron Widow, very, very basic. But in book 2, I'm just going to go into a lot more like depth because I have more breathing room. It's not going to be like action, action, action all the time. So I do think that book 2 is going to be a lot more political and a lot more like introspective. I don't know if people are going to like it, but I'm going to write it anyway.
You have more freedom to the second book.
Yeah, I have more breathing room because like in Iron Widow, the first book, it's all like action all the time. There wasn't really any like room to do some serious introspection, but in book 2 is all like about consequences to drastic actions.
Okay.
Do you think fantasy writing is changing? Is it different from some years ago?
I think it's definitely there's more of a diverse league of fantasy writers that are coming out, and then like writing fantasy stories based on their own cultures, which I think is amazing, and I hope that it continues and it is not destroyed by book talk.
Antes de mais, quero dizer que considero A Viúva de Ferro como tendo o equilíbrio perfeito entre sci-fi jovem adulto e sci-fi adulto. É um dos livros que recomendaria a alguém que gosta de sci-fi adulto, até porque leio bastante de ambos os géneros, e sinto que este tem um world building mais profundo. A minha pergunta é se o Heavenly Tyrant vai ser ainda mais adulto, mais pesado e mais negro do que este.
I guess it would. I don't think it actually gets like as violent as Iron Widow. I think there's like less violence. Zetian doesn't really like. Okay, the title is Heavenly Tyrant, and everybody thinks it refers to Zetian, but what if it wasn't? And definitely, I go a lot deeper into the world building in Heavenly Tyrant. And I'm really excited about that because I honestly don't think this had like that good of world building. I had to cut a lot.
É engraçado porque quando descrevo o world building deste livro aos meus amigos, digo que é simples, mas, ao mesmo tempo, faz-me querer saber mais. O que é muito raro em sci-fi jovem adulto. Ao ler este livro, fico com a sensação de que há muito mais para além do que está escrito. E eu quero saber mais.
Yeah, it's coming. It's because, for Iron Widow, I had to cut a lot of it just because publishers really frown on books that are over 100,000 words for debuts. You basically like can't debut if your book is over 100,000 words. And my first draft was 118,000. So I had to like cut out so much, and this is like pressure squeezed down to its very like essentials. And I did have to cut a lot of stuff that I wish I didn't.
But that stuff is going to the second volume?
Yeah, so I'm trying to work that stuff out into the second book.
Okay.
That you actually feel that. I felt in Iron Widow that some transitions weren't there. It wasn't as smooth as it could be.
Exactly. It's because I had to cut it.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
A little bit regretful. I wish that I could have had more freedom. But, it is what it is. I have no plans to, go back and revise it because that's just cheating. So I'm going to try and, fix some of that in book 2.
Okay. Any more questions from our marvelous audience? Força.
Uma das coisas que achei mais interessante foi o facto de haver aqui um triângulo amoroso envolvendo um personagem bissexual, o que não é muito comum. Gostava de saber quais são os planos para esse triângulo amoroso no segundo volume.
All I have to say is that someone comes back in the most epic way possible. Most epic way possible. That's all I'll say.
Okay, well, let me tell you a story. About 20 years ago, I won an award and I represented Portugal in Europe with my writing. And somewhere in the Balkans, somebody was asking me about my next books, and I was telling them about the novella I was writing, and then suddenly I had an idea of using anime techniques in there, and he just looked at me and said, "Oh, okay." But it's obvious that you have anime techniques and anime influences in this book.
Yeah.
And what about other influences as well? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so I describe my taste as like a cross between an 8-year-old Japanese boy and a 62-year-old Chinese housewife. Even though those don't exist, they all work. But so Iron Widow is simultaneously very inspired by like shonen anime, so like anime for teenage boys. But it's like a feminist take on those anime for teenage boys, because usually those anime, they don't have the best female characters. And I wanted to write a story in which like it has a world like that, but the protagonist is a female character who is like not willing to be a trophy. And or like arm candy, and then it also has influences from just like Chinese harem dramas, even though the harem drama part was like one chapter.
Do you plan for 2 books, or we'll have 3 books in the end?
Let's just say there's a reason I call it the Iron Widow series instead of the Iron Widow duology. So I'm not sure if I'm allowed to announce like things, but yeah, there will be an Iron Widow series.
Okay, and you plan to write something else at the same time, or just focus on this series?
Well, I have to also write my Zachary Yen series, which is my middle grade debut. And so, yeah, I'm kind of 2 series going on at the same time. Wasn't the best decision, but I really didn't have a choice back then.
Okay.
Yeah.
The book seems feels very Oriental, very Chinese.
Yeah.
Do you feel that? Do you feel that your Canadian Western tradition also gets in there? What's your feel?
I mean, probably. It's because I grew up half in China and then half in the West, so very clearly it's going to have influences from both. I don't really believe that Chinese, the People's Republic of China, has the only definition of what it means to be Chinese. So I've actually had like Chinese interviewers ask me, hey, this is a mix between Chinese and Western thoughts, like what is your opinion on that? And I'm just like, well, I did grow up with both, so of course it's gonna have both.
Do you follow what's been done, what is happening in Chinese science fiction arena? Do you read Chinese authors?
I do read Chinese authors, but pretty rarely, just because I have so much to read. But I have read some of their like science fiction and fantasy, and I think they're doing some pretty interesting things. And Worldcon is going to be in Chengdu next year, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to go, but it seems like they have a very active science fiction community there.
Okay, let's see if we have more questions from the audience. One more from there.
A minha pergunta tem a ver com as muitas cenas cortadas do livro para o tornar mais pequeno. Alguma vez iremos ver o draft original? Pode contar-nos mais sobre essas cenas?
Okay, I don't think the original draft will ever be released in that way, but I'm trying to incorporate some of those deleted scenes into the later books as flashbacks. But there was one scene where Shiming was which was trying to detox, and then on Yizhi's lap, and Yizhi was just like doing a face mask, and and Zetian walks in, and she's just like so surprised, and then Yizhi's like, well, my skin's gotta look good, right? You think I got this naturally? So there was a lot of scenes like that, and then there was also a full scene of like Zetian and Shiming training together on the ice rink. So I actually show what it means for that to be a training thing, like how that works towards training to be better, like mecha piloting partners. But I had to cut that entire scene. And then there was also more explanation over the element system, where they're just like sitting in a room, and then like Sima Yi is like just explaining all of that. Had to cut that because apparently it was boring. And so a lot of scenes like that. Also, there's a scene of them like going around Chang'an, the capital, with like actual descriptions of the capital, but that's gonna be in the book 2 instead, because like a lot of book 2 takes place in the capital. So yeah, there's a lot of those scenes, and also scenes of Zetian hanging out with the female pilots at like a women's market. That was a personal favorite. I had to cut all of it.
Okay, we heard there's a movie deal. So are you excited with that, or you know that there are a lot of movie deals that just go nowhere?
I am tempering my expectations. I'm not going to allow myself to be excited until the day they actually start filming. I think that's a smart choice.
Okay, but you think it's possible?
I think it's possible just because like the movie rights are with the one guy in Hollywood who could make it happen if he wanted to, Eric Vage, because he was the one who made Twilight, The Hunger Games, Divergent, those movies happen.
Yeah.
So if there's any person who could like actually pull it off, it's him. And it's interesting because my agent and I actually originally submitted this as an animated series project, but he came in and was like, no, I want to make this live action. And we were like, well, okay, you can try. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I am not letting myself like have any emotional attachment to it until they actually start filming.
Oh, but those are great news for you, and for the readers, I suppose.
But have you thought who would you like to play the main characters?
I have decided that because, Hollywood is really, really lazy with just reusing the same Asian actors over and over. And so none of them are my dream cast. I want to give opportunities to fresh faces, so I will find them in the casting process.
The book is very visual, but it's difficult to imagine because it's all over the place.
Yeah.
But you have a very, very clear idea of how all the effects go and what's happening there, do you?
I do, and it's really a shame that I can't draw because I do have like some very vivid visions. And if you go on my website, there's a lot of arts that I commissioned that like show what the mechas, the crystals look like and what the characters look like. And so, yeah, it's a shame that I can't draw.
Ainda no seguimento das adaptações, eu notei que a primeira parte do livro tem muita ação. Tudo é muito rápido e descrito muito detalhadamente. Quando escreveu essas cenas, já estava de alguma forma a pensar que o livro poderia ser adaptado para o cinema ou TV?
Oh, I do not care about that side at all. I'm not thinking, because if I wanted to write a thing that gets turned into a movie, I would be writing a script. So like this, I knew in my heart, and even my agent was like, yeah, this is going to take like some major budget to like make into an actual movie, so maybe let's submit this as an animated project instead. So yeah, whatever happens with the adaptation, it's out of my hands. I actually saw a little bit of the like draft script of the movie, and when I was reading it, I realized that this is not something that I could have done. So they are doing like new stuff with it, and I'm gonna let them do that just because, you know, I'm not a script writer, and they had a lot of innovations that actually blew my mind. I was like, oh,
already
wow.
a script.
There's a kind of a like script draft thing.
And you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I did. They did a lot of new things, different things that I think were necessary to like represent it in a more visual format. And I was like, okay, now I realize I could never be a scriptwriter. You do that.
Different rules, right?
Yeah, so I'm really glad that I'm not the one writing the screenplay because I could not have come up with some of the stuff
and
they came up with.
do you love mechs? Those big machines that you use in your book?
Yeah.
Are you a big fan? Pacific Rim, for example.
Yeah, because Pacific Rim itself is a love letter to like the entire mecha genre, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like stuff like that, and also like Ultraman. I don't know if I can convince the movie production team to like use more practical effects. Do more tokusatsu, please.
Did you ever write in any other genre? Do you plan to?
Well, I write in middle grade, but that's also like science fiction, fantasy thing. I think all of my books are very like science fantasy in the comic book way, because like Marvel movies, they're not science. They have like a combination science fiction and fantasy, so I feel like all my books are very that. And whether or not I would write something without a speculative element, I don't know, because like contemporary tends to bore me.
Façam like, subscrevam, partilhem e comentem. E sejam épicos.
Ok, mais alguma pergunta do público?
Uma vez que também está a escrever a série Zachary, como é que alterna entre o género mais juvenil e o jovem adulto? Como é que faz essa transição?
Yeah, so I read different stuff. So if I'm writing Zachary in, then I read more on the younger side. I read all the middle grades, and there are a lot of middle grades, really great ones that are coming out. And then when I am trying to like write in the Iron Widow world instead, then I read darker stuff. So I'm always inspired by the books that I read. I think I'm constantly learning from other authors. I'm always mind blown at like what they can do.
Mais alguma pergunta do público?
Gostaria apenas de saber que livro está a ler agora.
What book? Okay, so I just finished Hamra and the Jungle of Memories by Hannah Alkoff, and that's a middle grade that's coming out, I think, in a few months. And that was really great. It was like Malaysian folklore, middle grade, like magic adventure, and yeah, it was really great.
Mais alguma pergunta?
Escreveu sobre o Wu Zetian e também sobre o primeiro imperador. Se tivesse de escolher outro personagem histórico chinês, qual seria?
Which one would I pick? So I have always been fascinated with the first emperor of China's like great grandmother, I think, and she was like the first like queen to use the title Queen Dowager, and she did a lot of like really badass stuff. And one day I will make a video about her, but yeah, I love her. And I think there are a lot more female historical figures in Chinese history that are like really underrated because they all get overshadowed by the blinding light that is Wu Zetian. But actually, she's not my favorite. My favorite is the Queen Dowager, like the great-grandmother. And then there are also like characters, well, not characters, but historical figures like Empress Xiao and then Empress Liu. And okay, Empress Liu Zhi, she was like the first actual empress in Chinese history, but she was the empress of the first emperor of the Han Dynasty instead, and she was like really fascinating in her own right. And I could go on about this forever, and it's probably going to get really obscure if I do. But yeah.
Many thousands of years of history.
Exactly. I have to have like 3,000 years of history in my head.
One more question?
Fiquei a conhecê-la e ao seu livro através do TikTok. Qual a importância das redes sociais para um autor se promover? É preciso ser um especialista no TikTok para um autor conseguir um editor e vender o seu livro?
So I actually don't have the best opinion of TikTok because I think it definitely operates on a like racist, colorist algorithm. This has been proven. So if you look at all the like book talk recommendations, it is overwhelmingly white. And I think the only reason that my book took off on TikTok is because of the content that I made. And it was a deliberate decision on my part because I had a lot of like TikTok ideas. And then I basically like reserved all my energy and then blasted it out all out on like release week. And it worked because I went like quadruple viral on TikTok on my release week. And but I really resent the fact that authors are forced to be on TikTok now. I hear this a lot from authors, especially if they're young, that their publishers push them to like be on TikTok, stay on TikTok, because like the publishers just want authors to become influencers nowadays. So like even though it worked for me, I realized that like it's because I have these pre-existing social media skill sets that are like completely unrelated to my writing, and I wish that authors didn't have to do this like in lieu of just getting actual marketing from their publishers. So I do think that probably TikTok played a lot in the like sustaining my level of success, but I wish that it didn't have to.
Queria perguntar sobre a sua rotina de escrita. Tem um horário para escrever? Tranca-se com o computador? Fecha as janelas e desliga o telefone?
Oh my God. I wish I did, because honestly, my daily life is very chaotic. I wake up at like 2 p.m. sometimes. I think the latest I woke up was like 5 p.m. That was not a great day. Because I tend to get more writing done at night, which is very unfortunate because I wish I had a like more normal sleeping schedule. But when I get into writing, I write till like 5 a.m. and then I sleep and then I get up at another unreasonable hour. So I wish I had more of a structure to my life, but somehow every time I try it, it just doesn't work out.
And now that you are internationally known, do you feel that different readers in different parts of the world give you different feedback, or do they understand the message that you were trying to convey, and they pick up the same things about the book?
I think they do pick up the same things about the book, and it has actually surprised me to like go around Europe and see like people in countries that like where like English is not even like the language, and they love my book for some reason. And it blows my mind to see like people all over the world just like be fans of my content and like resonate with my book in the same ways.
Antes de mais, parabéns também pelo prémio ganho em Portugal, especialmente porque é votado pelos leitores.
Oh yeah, thank you all.
A questão que quero colocar tem duas partes. Primeiro, já ouvimos aqui como foi a sua experiência com os agentes literários. Tem alguma perspectiva no futuro de procurar uma alternativa ou sente que a sua carreira está mais segura tendo por trás esta máquina? Até porque o trabalho do escritor deve ser escrever e o resto deixado para quem sabe. A segunda questão tem a ver com o prémio, porque descreve esta obra como sendo meio jovem adulto, mas as pessoas que votaram são maioritariamente adultas. Este livro teve muita aceitação pelo público português. Estamos a falar de um prémio normalmente atribuído a obras traduzidas, pelo que esteve a votos com autores como Neil Gaiman ou Stephen King. E, ainda assim, o seu primeiro livro ganhou o prémio.
Oh yeah, that really surprises me. And I actually don't get why people like confuse Iron Widow for like adult sci-fi, because to me, I feel like it's very YA. But it does have a like very large crossover audience, which I appreciate. And yeah, I am just constantly surprised by like the range of people who like this book.
E quanto aos agentes literários?
Oh, publishing houses. So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, would this work better if I just self-published? I guess it will have to depend. Will publishing continue to disappoint me?
Já falou aqui sobre a sua foto no livro A Viúva de Ferro
Oh yeah.
e no Zachary. A propósito, adoro o seu cosplay. Será que a sua foto no próximo livro também será assim? Neste estilo?
Yeah, I want to do something funny for the second book as well. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But definitely, I don't think I'm ever going to have a normal author picture.
And your parents saw this coming? You, a famous writer?
No, they were very against it. And actually, I had so many huge fights with my parents over it. And honestly, at one point, like, I was going to just, like, never speak to them again, move to Toronto. Just because they kept, like, reprimanding me for, like, doing writing instead of, like, a more practical job, such as, my biochem degree. They were like, why are you wasting your biochem degree? You're being ridiculous. And yeah, I had huge fights with them, and the only reason that I didn't like move out and never speak to them again was because I was trapped with them due to COVID. And nowadays they're all like bragging all over the place, and I make sure to remind them every time that like you didn't support me during this, you know.
But Etienne had also a thorny relationship with her family. And is this and in some ways a very Oriental way, right? The relationship they have between each other. How did you get there?
I think she just has an abusive family, and at the point when I was writing this book, I was like really mad about like women taking abuse that like they shouldn't, and the ways in which like they learn to tolerate abuse. And so I really want to explore that. So basically, like all my protagonists have like abusive families, and I am really shocked that my mom read this book and then like thought nothing of it.
You said earlier that you were an exception because you were a Canadian writer making it big in the American market.
Yeah, without an American publisher.
Without an American publisher. What is, for the Portuguese audience, what is the relationship between those two markets? Does Canada, science fiction in Canada, live in the shadow of the American market?
Well, usually Canadian writers just like go to American publishers instead. So like most Canadian books that get published and are like become bestsellers, they are with American publishers. I think mine's actually the first science fiction book to be entirely Canadian and still hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. It's a very strange case. And even my publisher was like, yeah, like usually Penguin Random House US is the one with the big hits, and then I don't think they're used to having us having the hit instead.
Is it published already in China?
No, I don't think it ever will, just because it is the themes are very just, it's a little too violent for China, I think, because they really love their censorship right now. And yeah, I miss when Chinese media used to not have so much censorship, especially regarding like political criticism and stuff. This is why most of the Chinese dramas I like are from like 20 years ago. Because nowadays there's a lot of censorship, and also they don't allow their protagonists to be bad people. And Zetian is not a good person. So I think they're going to think it's like a bad influence for the children, and they'll never publish it.
Do you think that, obviously there's a lot of controversy about many things nowadays. Do you think your book could be said to be too woke? Did you have that kind of criticism? What's your reaction to that?
Oh, I think it's really funny. When I heard that like someone said Zetian's like a feminist extremist terrorist, and I was like, oh, that's so funny. Yeah, so like I don't really care about the type of person who says things like that, and I'm happy that Zetian unsettles them. Yeah, so yeah, I am happy that she unsettles them.
Do you think it's needed? Do you think it's something that we need nowadays to make a stance?
Well, yeah, for sure, because like I am tired of seeing women be forced to take the high road and always have to be like nice and compassionate all the time. And I think I get criticism for Zetian being like not a nice feminist, and I'm just like, why? What's the point of feminism if you're just gonna have to like force women to be nice anyway?
Will we get to see more of the aliens in the next book?
More of the what?
More of the aliens, where they came from.
Oh yeah, the Hunduns. Yeah, the Hunduns. There is going to be like discourse about that because of course the twist at the end. And so that actually like very much impacts Zetian's psyche, and she's gonna have a lot of trouble going out onto the battlefield again. But like she is forced to. But there will be discourse about like colonialism, basically.
Okay, we have a question from there.
Eu aderi a fórum sobre a Viúva de Ferro, não oficial, infelizmente.
Yeah.
E uma pergunta que fazem sempre quando nos apresentamos é: qual é o nosso personagem favorito e qual a nossa citação favorita? Então, quais são os seus?
So for sure, Zetian's the character that's most fun to write. So I guess she is my favorite, even though that's a very basic answer. And my favorite quote, I really like the tagline, "Be their nightmare." But I know that the quote everybody likes is, "You can't shoot me, I'm rich." Yeah. Mild spoiler, but he stops being rich.
Okay, we have 2 minutes.
Qual o personagem que mais a surpreendeu? Aquele que se destacou mais sem que o tivesse planeado?
I think it's Shiming, because originally he had a very different personality. He was more of a douchebag, honestly. And but when I wrote him that way, I realized that like him and Zetian were never going to work, just because she would not tolerate him if he were like that. So then he ended up like taking on more like awkward traits, and I think that worked out pretty well.
Okay.
Do your characters get a will of their own?
Yes, because like if I try to force them to be something that like force them in a direction that they're not meant to be, then it feels out of character, right? So yeah, they kind of do have a will of their own in that way.
Before asking for Rogério to give you the awards and to speak a little bit about it, just let me know. Do you have beta readers? Do you have friends who read an incomplete manuscript or the complete manuscript and that give you feedback, and then you work the novel again? Or
Yeah, for sure. And
not your parents, I believe.
Yeah, no. And I think beta readers are really important to have, especially people who are like not scared to give you criticism. And so, yeah, my best beta readers are the people who can just like tell me straight up, like, oh, this isn't working. This sucks. You need to change this. So I do appreciate beta readers.
And you do that while the novel is being written?
Yeah, so we like pass drafts to each other.
Okay, that's interesting. So I'm going to ask Rogério, who represents the association who gave you the award. Do you have something to say to Xiran?
Okay.
No problem. But do you have the mic here, Rogério? Please come forward.
So first of all, it's one of the annual conventions in Portugal. The fandom is not that big. It's called Fantastico, and it's been done almost for 20 years. And I was telling you, the kind of audience is a little bit more older, long-standing science fiction.
It was a surprise for this book to
I think it was interesting because we could see that it spanned to both the younger and the older attendants, and it was quite unanimous between people.
Oh, really?
Very, very well voted, well beyond any other of the competing books.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to give you a small token. It's what we give, and it comes in different colors, and somehow we decided that dark
Yes.
would be fitting for this award. It was done by Josué, and it's basically, I think, we also paid a lot of attention to our own history in Portugal, and we look a lot into the 14th century and the age of discoveries. And so this is fusing both a traditional boat caravel that went in the discoveries and also like a digital version.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Yeah.
So again, we didn't rehearse this, so if I can.
Congratulations.
In my book, it's like half tradition, half like ancient stuff, and half sci-fi stuff. So thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you to people who voted and did. Yeah, this is so cool.
So, and this is a great way to finish this BANGCAST in collaboration with Comic-Con. Xiran, thank you so much for coming to Lisbon, to Portugal, to speak with your fans, with us. Best of luck with your new projects and your life. And congratulations for the small token.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And you are going to give some signings afterwards?
Yes, I have another signing session at 3.
Ok, so guys, apareçam, tirem umas fotos. Obrigado a todos. Um grande abraço e até à próxima.